Hi everyone, it's Roger here from what's on disneyplus.com, and quick news update for you guys on how Daredevil Born Again might not be done as well for Disney Plus as we would hope. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. So it's only been a short time since the season finale of Daredevil Born Again was released on Disney Plus, and we know that they're already in production on a second season, which is going to be coming out in March of next year. So fans of Daredevil got plenty to be looking forward to. But it does look like the show seems to be having a problem getting viewers. Now, I think generally people that have been watching the show have been enjoying it. I've watched all of them, loved it. I thought it was a really good series, one of the best ones they've put out for a while. It was a little bit hit and miss here and there. I think that was generally due to the creative elements to it, but in general, it doesn't look like it's actually been pulling in enough views to kind of, that you'd expect from a Marvel show. So initially, when the first episode was released, there was kind of put out that 7.5 million people around the world watched that first episode, which is a little bit down of about 2 million on Agatha All Along. But this was kind of deemed, well, it's an R-rated stuff. It's not going to appeal to a bigger audience. And that was a problem. Now, week on week, we've been looking at the Nielsen numbers. So some new information came out this morning from the last week of March. And once again, the show never made the originals chart. On that same bit of data from today, it was revealed that another Hulu original series, Good American Family, was able to just slightly crawl onto the list at the very bottom, which I've got to be honest, I've been watching that show. It has been really good, really freaky. You just don't really know what's going on, who's telling the truth. Can't wait for the season finale next week. But that also kind of highlights the problem that Daredevil Born Again is having, because this other show was able to kind of jump in. Now, obviously, there's maybe a bit more general interest. Hulu might have more subscribers, and also Disney Plus subscribers in the US are only represented on the Nielsen chart, whereas the global numbers are very different. So while Daredevil might not be doing very well, for example, in the United States, it might be doing really well in like the UK, Australia, and on a whole, globally, it might be doing well enough that Disney is like, yeah, that's fine. But we're also kind of seeing really that this show is just not hitting the Nielsen chart. Now, not all the big shows managed to get on the Nielsen chart. The Penguin is another show that kind of, I think I only managed it in the last week when there was enough episodes to kind of clock up enough minutes. And I just recently watched that show, and that was fantastic. Not everything that is good television necessarily pulls in the viewership. And I think that's sometimes where we have to put that disconnect of just because something is good doesn't mean that it's going to be popular, and vice versa. There's some really bad stuff that gets lots of views, but yeah, it's just a pile of rubbish. But this does kind of show to me a problem that Marvel has with its shows, and it is why we have seen the degrading of Marvel as a brand over the last few years through shows coming out and movies coming out that people have not connected with. People have been turned off. People are just not interested. People have been burnt out. And you can see with the viewership of each passing series, the viewership has been dropping off. With each passing movie, it's not been doing so well. It'll be interesting to see how Thunderbolts does in cinemas when it's out next week. Is that going to get a big enough audience? Is it going to be better than Captain America, or is it going to be worse? I've got my ticket for next Thursday morning. I'm going to be going seeing it to see it. But are people just, burnt out? Are people holding off on Daredevil until the entire series is out because they're used to doing it as a binge watch? It does seem like with Daredevil Born Again, there's been some positive reactions to it. Some people not liking it, some people not saying it's as good as Netflix. You're always going to get a little bit, but generally it's been very positive. People enjoying it. Obviously, as well, in the US, there's still this sort of stigma with Disney Plus that it's still just for kids, and they might not have sort of realised it's on there, and so therefore, not having the younger viewers is not bringing up the viewership. The good news is really from this show is that it is much cheaper for them to make than some of the big shows that they've been making, like Secret Invasion stuff, so they can make it much cheaper, so therefore they don't need as many viewers. And I do think quality is where they need to be. And also, we're kind of in this weird zone of like, sometimes we're comparing viewership to things like WandaVision and Loki, and those kind of were in zones of where not only was it unique in the fact that we had these shows for the very first time, but also we were in the middle of the pandemic. So many of us were being locked up, couldn't go out, and viewership generally is up. If you go back and look at the viewership of TV as a general, it was massively up because we couldn't do anything else. People have been moving away from television. Netflix still has some big hits, but Netflix also has the advantage of they generally release all of their episodes at once, get those minutes up, so that's why it goes very well in the Nielsen charts, because that's how it works. Disney doing the weekly releases means it's much harder for these shows to do, but eventually some of the big Hulu shows have been kind of creeping onto there as well. But yeah, Daredevil Born Again just does not seem to have been a big hit, and I'm going to be interesting to see what happens with Andor. Is the same thing going to happen with that show, where, you know, it's very popular and people are enjoying it, but it's not that big mainstream show? We saw that with the first season of Andor. It wasn't huge enough, but it will grow. I do wonder as well with Andor, with releasing 3 episodes at once, we might see a bit of a better boost in those minutes going up. If everyone's watching 3 episodes back to back, maybe that might have been a thing that would have helped Nielsen numbers. But again, we have to take into account that Nielsen numbers represents, you know, just America, and are one simple way of us seeing how good something is. There are other measurements. Disney might be looking at, you know, well, the retention and keeping hold of subscribers works better when a show is spread out rather than releasing it all at once. Yeah, there is definitely advantages and disadvantages to doing all that. But yeah, so I just feel like Daredevil Born Again, it is a little bit disappointing that the show hasn't kind of pulled in the viewers, but also we don't really necessarily know how well the numbers of the original Netflix series of Daredevil did. We didn't have the Nielsen numbers for that back then, so we can't really compare like for like. You know, maybe it was one of those shows that didn't have a lot of viewerships, but it built over time, and that's what Disney is looking forward to. You know, something like that kind of happened with Andor as well. People jumping into it. So because that is a key thing over the next year, as that second season is coming, you know, those minutes are going to keep clocking up week on week on week on week, and that's what they want. Do I think it's a failure? I don't. You know, it was a great show. It's got a lot of response to it. It's a lot cheaper for them to make, so therefore the viewership numbers doesn't have to be there. But I'm sure there's going to be some people maybe going, well, we kind of wanted something a little bit more to pull people in. You know, there's been advertisements for Daredevil on TV and, you know, big press thing. But has that actually correlated into viewers? Who knows? But again, globally, those viewers figures might be well enough that they go, yeah, okay, it's worth the cost that we're putting in on it, and it's working with the MCU. It's also, and I think this is a key thing with Daredevil as well, is doing it as a TV series that's kind of separated from the movies a little bit more. Might help the movies moving forward feel a bit more special, because suddenly then we're not having that crossover. It's not an instant thing. This could take years to sort out, but I think that might be a benefit. But who knows? It's definitely not good news for Daredevil Born Again that the viewership numbers does seem this low, but there are reasons for that. But ultimately, there's no hiding the fact that this show just does not seem to be clicking. The fact that Disney have not really been that open about the viewership numbers of it. But maybe things will improve, but maybe we are just going to get that second season and then they're going to call it a neg. It's just not working. And with the amount of money that they're spending on these shows, is it working? I think also same thing happening with Star Wars. You know, are the viewership numbers, being there enough to pull in the amount of money that they're spending on these shows? I don't think it is. I think that's why they're going back to doing different things. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you not? Do you think Daredevil Born Again has been a big success from a commercial side? And have you enjoyed the series? You know, that's the other big thing as well. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Go check me out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. And I shall see you guys soon. Laters.